All right, y'all, it's James Quantum Mechanic. Today we're going to be talking about extensions, okay? And the importance of the extension and why there's so many different styles out there. Really what I want to talk about is this right here, the Snapon Wobble Drive Plus extensions. These are absolutely fantastic. They're phenomenal. They really are. And we'll talk about that in a second. But really I just want to talk about the kind of the evolution and the different sizes of extensions you're going to need. Okay, so kind of some of the basic ones here. This is probably what everyone has. These are the 3-inch extensions. I have an assortment of 3 inches here because they're the most common. You can always stack these together and make them longer, obviously. But anyway, these are kind of the evolution, right? This is an old Craftsman one I've had forever, a Cobalt one, and this is like the most generic ones you get. The socket goes on, it doesn't move around, and that's it. Okay, pretty straightforward. And it really grants you a little bit of access, really when you need to get deep into something or clearance of something. This is what you use, right? I don't want to tell you guys when you need an extension. I just kind of want to talk about the different types. All right, so that's that. I mean, they're basic and they work great, and I've used them for years. I just recently this year picked up some of these. I started off with the Pittsburgh wobble extensions. I started off with Pittsburgh because I wasn't sure if I was going to like them, and I very quickly moved up to the Snap-on ones. Anyhow, these are absolutely fantastic. They give you just a little bit of deflection on the socket, and it just really gives you a little bit more clearance. Like, let's say you need to get a socket that's right up on something, right? This right here will tilt out of the way just enough for you to get that socket in. Most notably would be like battery terminals and brackets and stuff like that. But really, it just gives you just that much more clearance to get a socket in on something, okay? Then the other thing that I've actually been using for a long time are these locking extensions. This is an old Craftsman one that I will never warranty out now because it's made in China. But this used to be the lock mechanism, and it worked okay. It worked great until I obviously broke it. I had a handful of these, and locking extensions are really great when you don't want to lose your socket. Okay, let's say you're taking something and you're really shoving it down past like a bunch of cable wires and runs and hoses and stuff like that. And the danger isn't when you stick it down in there to do the work. It's when you pull it out. Okay, because what happens is the socket is actually going to be a little bit thicker than the shaft of the extension. So when you go to pull it out, what could happen is the socket the extension comes out and the socket stays. So that's what makes a locking extension really great. This is one from Quinn, because kind of no matter what you do, it doesn't come apart until you release the lock. Okay, now like I said, this was great for its time. There wasn't really much options out there. This was like maybe 15 or so years ago, and so then I picked up some of these Quinn ones, and they're okay. I picked up some of these Pittsburgh ones, and they're okay. And you know what? They work. An extension. You don't need super nice extensions. So that's why I never really invested all that much into extensions, because like I said, it really just extends the socket from the ratchet. It doesn't really do all that much. You don't need it to handle a lot of torque usually. It just kind of works. And these locking extensions are no different. There's definitely better ones on the market, but this works. And you might think that that's a little bit fat, but once you actually put a socket on there, it actually ends up being about the same diameter as the socket. So it's really not that big of a deal. Now, this is an impact rated socket. This is another 3-incher, and this is absolutely fantastic. I use this for my impact driver. Obviously, you don't need impact rated extensions, like hardly anybody has them, but I have them, and they work great, and it makes me feel better knowing that I'm putting something impact rated on an impact gun. Now, these Wobble Drive Pluses, and then these are all the different sizes that I have. Something very long. These are really good when you need to get up into like the bell housing, or you need to get past something, or even down deep into an engine bay. Something like this works in all these different sizes. This is a Snap-on, Blue Point Snap-on, right? Really great. For longer ones, because at the time they didn't really make aftermarket or cheaper, so to speak, extensions, so you had to go tool truck. And like I said, you can always bundle these up together and make them longer. But these Wobble Drive Pluses, this is the star of the show. This is what I want to talk about. This is the part number there, but this is absolutely amazing. I cannot believe I went so long without a wobble, and more specifically these Wobble Drive Pluses, because now instead of carrying around 2 extensions, right, I can just carry around the one extension. And basically what happens is, so you put this is your normal wobble, you put it on, and it has a little bit of deflection, right? That's how that works. Obviously, when you put the straight one on there, there's hardly any deflection at all. However, on the Wobble Drive Plus, it can either be straight, okay, and it has a nice tight fitment, or it has the wobble built into it, right? And look at how extreme that wobble is, right? Comparatively to this cheaper, and this is kind of why, this is where price comes into effect, this cheaper one from Pittsburgh, right? It just doesn't quite have the same deflection that this Snap-on one does. It just has a little bit more of that angle, right? A little bit more severe of an angle. Anyhow, this socket here, or this extension, does the work of two extensions, because it can be straight or it can be Wobble Drive Plus, hence the name. They're a little bit pricey. I think I bought the whole kit. You guys can look it up. It's really not that much. I say not that much. Not that much for a professional mechanic. Probably outside the realm of what the do-it-yourselfer would use. But for me, space is important. I mean, this is my toolbox here, and I really want it to be as small and efficient as possible while still granting me the most amount of use as humanly possible, right? So these Wobble Drive Pluses are absolutely fantastic. I had these Blue Points before. And Blue Point, don't get me wrong, also makes fantastic extensions, but these Wobble Drive Pluses are just better, okay? And you need all these different sizes. I say need. You really don't, okay? You could absolutely get away with just having a bunch of really small extensions that you kind of piece together and make this like thing. The problem is, especially if they're not locking extensions, when you go to take them out of something, like I said, the extension might stay, so you have to fish down and grab the extension. So it's something to think about. Plus, I think you get a little bit more torque transfer on one solid piece of steel rather than putting a bunch of extensions on there. So I feel like if you really need to put something in there and put some torque on it, a one-piece extension does better than multiple. So then you might be asking yourself, well, why don't I just get one of these small Wobble Drive Pluses from Snap-on and throw it on the end of my regular extension? And you're right, you can absolutely do that. The problem is when you go to take your socket off, if you're trying to take it off of this guy, it can be a little bit hard. You might take the whole thing off, and it could just be a pain sometimes. So as a do-it-yourselfer, guy that works in his garage, absolutely would 100% say just get one of those and you'll be fine. But sometimes you need exactly 3 inches, and throwing on this extra 1-inch extension, it's just a little too much, and they don't really make 2-inch extensions. So yeah, just something to think about. Now, as a professional mechanic, yeah, you absolutely are going to want to have these in the full length. I'd tell you what I wish they had was something like this with a locking mechanism of sorts, and that would make this the absolute perfect extension if it had the Wobble Drive Plus and a lock. I haven't seen any of those. They don't make them. Now, the other thing that I really like is this little thumb spinner right here from Snap-on. This thing is absolutely fantastic. There's other brands out there I've used, but the Snap-on one just seems to be better. Why is it better? Well, it sets a little bit farther away from the head, so you can really thumb it a lot easier, okay? And the extension itself is kind of short, so you could almost use this like an extension, right? It's even shorter than this guy right here, so it gives you that little in-between size. And I'll tell you, these in-between sizes, the details are really what matter here. So this could live on your ratchet and really not take up too much room, and it's kind of nice to thumb things. Now, I don't really use a thumb spinner all that much because I much prefer a powered ratchet. I mean, you guys have heard me say that before. As a professional mechanic, I hate turning stuff by hand. That's for the birds, in my opinion. But it's nice to have when you really can't get in on something. So just kind of like an honorable mention there as we talk about extensions, okay? So long story short, Wobble Drive Plus extensions, not that. Wobble Drive Plus extension, really worth it, in my opinion, as a professional mechanic. And now all these other ones are really great too. Anything with a lock is you can't go wrong with, and obviously something with a lifetime warranty. I can't tell you how many of these Pittsburgh extensions I've broken either by putting too much torque on it or the ball, or they just wear out. Great warranty process, but I have so many extensions in my big toolbox you guys seen. It's just full of extensions, way more than any one person needs. So I have a ton of backups. I can make a 30-foot long extension if I wanted to. Anyway, all right, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you guys think. And let me know if there are some Wobble Drive Plus type extensions out there with a lock on it, or what are y'all's favorite extensions that you have out there? I know Mac, Cornwell, and all these other brands, I've used them. I have a couple, but these are just the ones I use because they're my favorite. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.